for today, you're going to need this paper. What I'm going to do is kind of just go over it with you guys, sort of like we did for the Miwok book. And then I'm going to talk about your My Community paper as well. Okay, so go ahead and get this paper out. This is actually a brochure. What do I mean? Well, it's a brochure just like the one that you guys are making for My Community. They give it out at the Clayton Museum and it's all folded like this. Okay, it has information about the museum, which is where we would have gone on our field trip. So that's one of the reasons I want to do it, is just to kind of review some of the stuff we would learn on our field trip about the history of Clayton. So we're going to start here with Joel himself and Margaret Ellen McClay Clayton, who I talked about yesterday. Okay, so we'll start with Joel. Joel Clayton was born in Bugsworth, Derbyshire, England, now called Bucksworth, in 1812. He came to America in 1837 and was a true pioneer of the American West. I'm going to go ahead and highlight that part. I think that's important. True pioneer of the American West. Somebody coming out west and creating a life for himself and his family. Okay. I'll also go ahead and I'll highlight England, 1812, America, 1837. It's okay if you don't highlight this stuff. Just follow along with us. Here's what else Joel did. He was a farmer, a mining engineer, a trader, a prospector, that's a gold digger, a community developer, and an entrepreneur. He first saw what is now called the Clayton Valley in 1843. In 1853, he bought land, and in 1857 began developing his new town of Clayton. Okay, so that's a big year there, is 1857. That's when he really started developing his new town of Clayton. Okay, and what happened was he's going to come out here. He's going to see this land. Remember, I talked about this before. And he is going to envision a town center. All right, the town of Clayton. And he's going to want to bring businesses in here. Joel's wife, the former Margaret Ellen McClay, was born in Fintry, Stirlingshire, Scotland in 1820. Okay, I'll go ahead and highlight Scotland, 1820. Margaret was a beautiful woman with a good sense of humor. She and Joel married in Hazel Green, Wisconsin in 1841. Margaret died in 1908. I'm sorry, did I say this back here that Joel died of quick pneumonia after exposure in a chilling storm? I apologize if I didn't say that. Back here to his wife, though, Margaret. Margaret died in 1808 and is buried with Joel in the Live Oak Cemetery in Concord, California. These portraits above are thought to be early photos of Joel and Margaret. The Claytons had 9 children, but only 4 lived to be adults. Their names were Elizabeth, Jane, well, all the kids, I'm sorry. Oh, wait, no, never mind, just the 4. Elizabeth Jane, Benjamin Franklin, Charles Joel, and Henry Alfred were their kids. Okay, I'll go ahead and highlight that part too. 9 children, but only 4 lived to be adults. The field trip we would have gone on would have been to the museum. Okay, the museum is the Joel Clayton House Museum. It consists of the Joel Clayton House, a second house of the same vintage from Oak Street, the Old Town Jail, and a privy. These historic houses and structures were converted into our museum through the volunteer efforts of the Clayton Historical Society members. Furnishings and artifacts are acquired through donations from generous groups and individuals, and it just talks a little bit more about that. So the actual house, this is what you can see on Main Street. The actual Joel Clayton house is believed to have been Joel's second home in Clayton. It was built around 1860. What? Just south of the confluence of Mount Diablo Creek and Mitchell Creek. That's by the library. Okay, that's where the 2 creeks actually meet. There's a bridge there. In 1916, the Clayton house was moved to the north side of Mount Diablo Creek, and the Keller family used it as a bunkhouse on their ranch. It was presented to the Clayton Historical Society in 1975 and moved to its present location in 1976. So this house has actually moved around a couple of times. In 1916 it was moved, and then now it's in its present location in 1976 on Main Street. Okay, so it was actually originally Joel Clayton's house. All right, I'm going to turn it over. There's another piece here called the Oak Street House. Built sometime before 1878 when it was owned by John Brown and his family, this house had 2 small bedrooms and a sleeping porch in the back. Other owners included Anton Gomez and Henry and Matilda Pape. The house was moved to its current site in 1976. Now, we don't go in this this house, but it's on the site where the museum is, if I recall correctly. Now, we do get to go in the jail, and this is cool. On February 4th, 1884, Contra Costa County Clerk L.C. Wittenmeyer filed a petition for Robert Hasty and others for a local jail in Clayton. So in 1884, they're going to get a jail. And here is who it's for. for the temporary keeping of criminals arrested. The need for the jail was that the said town of Clayton is remote from our country seat, and the arresting officer is at present obliged to take the prisoner to Martinez, causing inconvenience and extra expenses besides delays. So the main county jail, still to this day, is actually in Martinez, which is, back then, that would have even taken longer when we're talking just horses and buggies and types of carriages and things. So they wanted a jail here to be able to put somebody before they can maybe make it to Martinez, okay, which causes an inconvenience and delays. In 1903, Mrs. Kirkwood Clare took a photo that showed the jail located on Oak Street across from Endeavor Hall near the school bridge. Hey, like our bridge that we go up to go to the elementary school. In the 1940s, Constable Chapman sold the jail, which was no longer in use, to Oak Street property owner Tony Gomez, who added an extension and used it as a garage. The jail was given to the Clayton Historical Society and was moved to its current site behind the museum in 1976. Then what they did was they returned the jail to its original design. The addition was removed and a new door was fabricated with the hasp and bolt saved by Will Frank from a discarded door at Clayton's old Mount Diablo winery. Concrete foundation was laid, the roof replaced, and electricity installed. And in 1995, it opened to the public. So you actually can go in the jail. I'll kind of show you. It's on the property behind the museum. Let's talk about mining in Clayton, because that's kind of really the reason that Clayton came to be. Not only did Joel Clayton come here and see that it was just a beautiful area of land, the mining business over at Black Diamond Mines was a big deal, okay? Most people came to California for gold, and that's what it says here. Although it was gold that brought prospectors and miners to California, it was coal, I'm going to highlight coal, that changed the landscape around Mount Diablo. By 1860, companies had organized to finance the development of California's hard rock, gold, and silver mining industry. Ore cars, stamp mills, mine rails, crushers, pumps, and hundreds of other items were needed. Foundries in San Francisco, Sacramento, and Stockton were operating 24 hours a day to turn out the equipment needed and were fueled by expensive imported coal. Okay, so foundries are basically like factories, okay? And all these factories are fueled by coal, okay? So coal was really important. I'm going to put that, I'll do this right here, fueled by expensive imported coal. Now that means that they're bringing the coal in from elsewhere, so that's costing a lot of money. So when they can find coal here, that's going to make things easier, cheaper, better. It was the discovery of a coal outcrop in the Mount Diablo area in the 1850s that created a furor, meaning everyone's like, oh my gosh, coal, coal. Coal found so close to San Francisco was vital to the growth of the California economy. Even to this day in class, you guys, we had talked about coal and its importance in burning it as a fossil fuel for our industries. It provided a cheap, readily available fuel for not only the foundries, but for mills, ferries, steamers, and other developing industries. So this is going to be a big deal. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. The discovery of a coal outcrop in the Mount Diablo area in the 1850s. Okay, it was vital to the growth of the California economy. Cheap, readily available fuel. Several mining companies were formed, attracting a large number of miners to the area. This is going to be the beginning of Clayton, truly. And by 1860, there were 6 miles of mines stretching between the towns of Summersville, Nortonville, Judsonville, and Stewartville. Only a few miles away, Clayton responded immediately to the demand for services and supplies. So Clayton's going to get smart. They're going to say, hey, there's those mines over there with people, and they're going to need supplies. By 1861, Clayton had become the hub of activities. So this is where all the people are going to come, with miners walking over the hills for supplies and for entertainment. Clayton became a bustling town with a general store, school, hotels, taverns, and churches. Mining supplies, food, and land were in demand. By 1868, Clayton was one of the largest cities in Contra Costa County. That's huge. Contra Costa County now includes big cities like Concord and Pittsburgh, Walnut Creek, Antioch, Richmond, Martinez, okay? Back then, Clayton was one of the biggest ones. All because Joel Clayton really kind of planned out the city and envisioned it as a place. 4 million tons of soft, low-quality bituminous coal was extracted from the Mount Diablo coal field. By 1902, high mining costs and the advent of oil as an industrial fuel drove most of the mines out of business. So this was a very short-lived time. We're talking about 40 years, a little bit 40, 50 years. By 1902, it's pretty much gone. Many of the miners departed for Washington and Oregon, where the hard coal anthracite was being mined. Nortonville and Summersville became ghost towns almost overnight, and Clayton became a quiet ranching community. So this is another interesting thing. Clayton also during this time is going to start to have a lot of farmland. Orchards, ranches. They're going to grow grapes, which can make wine. There's actually a winery. The police station is an old winery. Okay. In 1922, silica sand mining began in Nortonville and Somerville. But in 1949, all mining operation in what had been the biggest coal mining operation in California closed down for good. So 1922, they're going to start up again with silica mining. That's out at Black Diamond Mines. But in 1949, it's going to be done. Okay, so that's just some more information on really what caused the boom. That's what really got the people here to Clayton. Okay, now what we're going to do is on your brochure, you should have already done the Where I Live portion. So today you're going to do the history section. Use this piece of paper to write it out. And I'm going to help clarify a couple things right now. First up, it says Clayton became a town in. Now, there's actually going to be some stuff that's going to happen later in the town of Clayton, and I actually shouldn't have highlighted that because that's not a your choice, that's a do this here. In 1964, that's when Clayton's actually going to become a town as part of Contra Costa County. Before that, it wasn't an official city. It was, but it wasn't. In 1964 is when it's actually going to become official, and it happened because there were some issues going on between Clayton and Concord. It actually had to do with some of like the sewer lines getting set up, and what happened was the people in Clayton really wanted to keep Clayton looking like Clayton. They didn't want it to get overrun with tall buildings. They didn't want it to get for the land to be all taken over by houses. So they actually became a town in 1964 to protect Clayton and maintain it in the way that they wanted it to be. Okay, they really just kind of, like I said, wanted to preserve it, wanted it to develop, but in a way that they could control locally and preserve the scenic landscape that we have here. Now, here's the rest of it. People came from all over the United States and even from Europe. So that's when it officially became a town. I know, now go back in time to people coming here. Clayton was founded by Joel Clayton in the year 1857. The name was decided by do you remember this? A coin toss between Joel Clayton and Charles Rhine. Early settlers called the area Deadfall. Remember this one? Most likely due to the number of dead and fallen oak trees in the area. Okay, after you've written all that in, you're going to write it very nice and neatly in this section, and then you can draw a picture here that represents the history. Hopefully that made sense. Hopefully that gave you just even more of an idea on how we truly started off kind of as a place for the miners to hang out. All right, that's it for today's.